Boom. There we are. We're started. Good morning. This is Caleb with the Stain and Seal Experts podcast, and I've got a great episode today. Joined with Stanton Frank from Northwoods Refinishing. A lot of you folks that know us have seen Stanton before on the internet, seen a lot of the projects he does. And I asked Stanton to come on the show because I wanted him to tell our story. So, good morning, Stanton. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. How are we doing today?
We're good. So, most of you guys may notice Stanton talks a little different. That's because he's from Wisconsin, isn't that right?
Yes, sir. I'm from the Northwoods, baby.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. And why don't you tell us just a little snippet about what you do with your business, and then maybe we start from the beginning and tell us how you got there, how you got it started.
Sure. My name is Stanton Frank. Everybody calls me Frank for some strange reason. Everybody, first time they meet me, um, Facebook, doctor's office, you name it, they call me Frank. And I say, sadly, that's not my name, but you can call me Frank, you can call me Stan, you can call me Stanton, just don't call me late for dinner. Um, but I'm from the Northwoods of Wisconsin. I'm right around Mountain, Wisconsin, about an hour northwest of Green Bay, um, about an hour from five major cities, so right in the middle of everything. And what I do for my business is about 90% of my work is now refinishing log homes. I pretty much started 6 years ago as a handyman. Um, and I would work from 5 a.m. until 2 p.m. at a factory job, and I was making ends meet. And then I decided, hey, I've got this extra time from 2 p.m. till like 6 p.m. I could maybe, do some side jobs, do some, grass mowing, uh, pruning. I did a little bit of landscaping in the past. I was just a go-getter. I was a young go-getter at the time. I was 21 years old. I was sick of just meeting ends meet. So I decided, hey, let's start up a little handyman service. I'm pretty handy. I can, problem solve pretty easy. Let's see, where this takes me. So I did that on top of my um, factory job at Capco, which was a metal stamping, welding shop, um, shipping, receiving kind of a deal. And they just had me as kind of like the handyman around there. And they would give me random tasks and I would just go out and do it. I didn't have any set jobs or anything.
And
And
that's
that's
how the
pretty much
story
how
started.
I,
Yeah.
that's how the story started before I started, staining and everything. I was just your local handyman.
Cool. Cool. So we've never done this before, but you and I talked about maybe going back in history a little bit and telling us maybe your background and how you start from the beginning, and maybe highlight some challenges you faced along the way. I think the
Oh,
goal I
definitely.
think the goal here is that there's a lot of people out there that maybe feel like life's hard, or they've got a tough way to go, or things aren't just happening the way they want. And probably the message here is that that's normal thing to
That
happen.
is
So
definitely normal, and I feel like that's becoming more and more normal in the day and age that we live in. We have so many struggles. We have so many things to overcome in life that it can just get overwhelming really quick and take somebody's life over fairly quick if they don't take the steps and um, responsibilities that they need to do.
we'll kick it off, man. Where do you want to begin?
I can kick it off from, my childhood. Um, I never had an easy life by any means. I was always the black sheep, even when things were so-called good. Um, but realistically, I've had it rough ever since 3, 4 years old. My mom and dad broke up fairly young, right around 3, 4 years old. That was a big hit. I know I was just becoming like I can remember it still all to this day, um, about them breaking up, how bad the fights were and everything, how toxic that household was at the time, and how rough that was as a child. That sent me through a loophole very young in life. At the age of like 6, 7 years old, I was kind of putting that blame for my mom and dad breaking up on myself somehow. So that was really hard. At the age of 7 years old, I mean, I was on antidepressants already. Um, so that was pretty much the start of the downfall to my childhood. That made me, you know, um, very, very, uh, what's the word? Uh, that made me just like in my own bubble, so to speak. I was very shy. Um, I didn't want to talk to anybody, and it just made me keep my head very, very low. Um, so growing up through school, I I was always bullied, always the black sheep, so to speak.
Why do you think you were bullied or considered the black sheep? I think you muted yourself there. Why do you think you were bullied?
Yeah. Um, it, I was just always just the black sheep, honestly. Um, I never fit in with any groups. I was just always just a little different than anybody else. I just had a different mindset, so to speak. And I noticed that very, very young at life. Um, but that wasn't a bad thing. Now that I look back at it, I'm very thankful for, those mindsets, um, and those experiences that I went through. Um, it was it's hard looking back at it. Um, but I'm thankful for, all those struggles, because without those struggles I wouldn't be to the place that I am now. And
So,
obviously, I'm not perfect. Um, I'm the average human, just like anybody else. I've made my fair share of mistakes, um, and it's just all about overcoming those mistakes and those setbacks in life.
sure.
The biggest setback that really put me through a loophole was the passing of my mother at the age of 10, or I'm sorry, at the age of 14 in 2010. Um,
So what happened there?
so I was living with my mom and my stepdad. She went through a surgery on her heart 2 years prior. She was put on pain meds, and sadly, in those situations where people have surgeries and then they go on pain meds, they sometimes rely on those pain meds and can't come off of them. Um, I never knew this until about 3 years ago. Um, but she passed away from a overdose, and you know, knowing that until 3 years ago, I was told that it was an accident, that she had a heart attack or a heart aneurysm. But that was sadly not the case. So she was basically my main supporter, my best friend. She was pretty much my whole life. Um, I never, I, I have a father, but he's never been a father figure in my life, so to speak. I've never learned anything important from him, but he's, in my life still. Um, but she was, everything in my life. She was my best friend, my main supporter. She helped me through, all these aspects of life. And then going from, living with that one person to not ever seeing them again, um, it takes a lot out of a person. And it can definitely send people through bad loopholes in life.
So what happens to you at 14 after that? What's next?
Um, 14, you know, I became more shy, more self-secluded, kind of in my own bubble. Um, I went through lots of trauma. Um, like growing up, I always had like night terrors, lots of insomnia, things of that nature. So that affected me, with recovery, with learning, with school.
How did you
So
deal
it
with
just
that?
it
Did you have a friend or any friends? How'd you deal with that?
honestly, I've dealt with the majority of it, in my own head. Um, that's probably not the way to do it, but that's the way that I ended up doing it. Um, Especially not having, any role model or father figure at that time. Um, it didn't come to me until about 3 years after she passed, that I finally found like a way to, you know, get out of my head, so to speak. And that's when I got into weightlifting. And that's what started to really change my life and start to flip it around.
So before you go into that, so you're living with your mom and stepdad. Your mom passes away.
Yep.
Where do you move to after that? Where do you stay with the stepdad, or what happens to your living situation?
So I moved in with my grandparents, and that was a situation in and of itself. Um, my grandma was, the foundation of my family. But sadly, after my mom passed, kind of the family fell apart, and my grandma's health started declining more. Um, she had brain cancer for some time. She passed away back in 2019. But it was for some time that she had brain issues, and you could tell. But sadly, after my mom's passing, just the family kind of broke apart. That just bond was broken, and everybody kind of went their own ways. Um,
So
but
with
I
all
lived
this,
with. I'm sorry.
continue.
Oh, but I lived with my grandparents for about 3.5 years until I turned 18. Um, it was good at the beginning, but when I turned more towards 18, I started to rebel more. I started to, go to parties more. Started to go down like more of a bad route that I didn't want to go
Hmm.
down, so to speak.
So back up just a little bit. So as all this was going on in your life, did it manifest itself in any ways? Like, did you dress did you dress funny? Did you paint your fingernails black? Did you do weird things, or things that some people might say that child's acting out, or did you how would anyone have known by looking at you that this was going on?
Um, yes and no. I was more just silent and I didn't really try in school, but I had full capabilities of achieving whatever I wanted. Whenever I would, put my mind to something, I would surpass expectations, so to speak.
Hmm.
So I didn't go through any crazy weird stages. I mean, the way that I really got myself out was playing excess amount of video games. Really, that was my coping mechanism.
Okay. All right. Cool. So you've turned 18. This is where you found the barbell.
Yep. I found the barbell back in about 16, 17 years old.
How'd you find it?
Um, Through high school, weightlifting class. I was always big into gym class. I always loved gym class. That's where I always, tried to excel. And I would always, try to, one up my classmates that, bullied me and everything because I had, a little bit of an advantage over them, being physically fit.
So you 16, 17, you start weightlifting. What does that look like? Is that just kind of something that happens once a week at gym class, or is that like it takes over your life?
We were doing it 5 days a week, every day, an hour a day. We'd go through different uh, like programs they would have, and just uh, those newbie gains, those first 3 months where you just make those immaculate gains. Just it boosted my self confidence to something that I never had before.
So did you play any sports also?
Uh, I did. I played rugby for a year and a half.
Okay, cool. So sounds like, I guess, for the people listening to this, like a whole lot of the same stuff that happens to a lot of people. I've heard similar stories. So one thing that I'm noticing though is you have a lot of awareness about it, and so we'll talk about that later. But once 18 rolls around, I guess you're getting out of school or work. What did you do in those late years of high school for to make money, and then tell me about once you turned 18 and graduated.
Oh man. Um, when was it? I think I was still in high school. Um, but my first job was McDonald's, just like most people. Got paid 7.25. Uh, worked my 15 hours a week, bare minimum, just no goals, no ambition, no, I never saw life past 18 when I was in high school. I just never saw myself, past that point because I just, I never had hope for myself really growing up. I had low self esteem for a long time, um, that I thought I would never, be anything. And that's not the case. Um, there was always just a small piece of me every time that I wanted to give up in life, give up on projects, give up in general, that I would just have this little burning flame inside of me that right when I was just about to, call it quits, that little ounce of fire in my soul just would light up and ignite and say, hell no, you can't do that, so to speak, and just rev me back up and get me back on my toes, so to speak.
Never quit. Yeah. So now you've graduated school, and I'm guessing you've moved out on your own. Is that
Correct. I lived with a ex for a short amount of time. Um, then that didn't work out. Um, had a an episode where I needed to go to a mental hospital for myself, and that's where that's where it clicked in my brain that, um, even though that I've been given these bad cards in life, man, there is so many other people that have it worse.
so? That's a big jump there, because I think for the average person, we've never even seen a mental hospital. So how do you, how did that whole situation unwind? How did that happen?
So I put myself in there myself. I shouldn't say obviously, but I went there myself because I knew that I needed something to, you know, I needed that help at that time. I was 18. I was lost. I was. hitting the bottle. I was doing, more than just the bottle, and I was becoming an alcoholic at that point, and I was like, if I keep doing this for 10, 20 years, it's not going to look pretty. Um, I gotta fix this now. And when I went there, um, I think it was the first night. Um, I got there at like 6, 7 p.m. and then like 9, 10 p.m. all the lights were off and everything. And like it was the most horrific thing in the world. It was just straight out of like a horror movie. There was just somebody just screaming at the top of their lungs and like people calling for help, and it was scary. And then just to hear other people's stories and to hear how rough they have it, um, and to see what they actually don't have in life, um, it sets you, how can you say that you're so behind on life, so depressed, so down and out, but there is this person with almost nothing, and they're still, happy as can be.
So you go to that place and you tell them you need some help, and then can you just turn around and walk out the door? What happens? How long were you there?
So I was there for 5 days. Um, you can't, admit yourself out. You have to have a doctor pretty much sign off saying, you're all right to go back out. Um, I was there for 5 days. I just wanted to, ensure my safety, my mental health, and, get that goal, to keep going and what I'm going to be doing in the near future.
So that kind of pivotal moment, it sounds like you think you got it bad, then you go and you see some people who really have it bad, right?
Exactly.
So then what? That reignites the fire to keep moving, or what happens next?
That definitely reignited the fire. And every time, even now, when I get down and out, um, I'm human. We're all human. We're all going to have, those episodes of highs and lows in life. Um, it's just to, step back a second, say, I'm thankful for, all the things that I have, all the things that you touch, and, the day-to-day basics that we take advantage of. Um, the clothes on our back, the roof over our head, the food in our stomach, those are the basics. Like if you have those, you're setting yourself up good already. Um, there's some people that don't have their own clothes, that don't have a roof over their head, that haven't eaten in 4 days. There's people out there with, terminal cancers, um, just all different diseases.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on out there, man. A lot to be thankful for. So I want to keep it moving.
Yes, sir.
So so at the beginning of the story, you said you were working at a stamping and metal fabrication type shop at 21. So from 18 to
Correct.
21, what was the work life like right there? Was it just you got to get a job, or were you thinking one day I'm going to do my own thing? I don't know when or how, but was that always the dream? What and was it you just hated working for somebody else, or you just wanted something more?
So let's dive into that a little bit from that 18 to 21 where I started my business. So I hopped around jobs quite a bit. Um, I worked at McDonald's for maybe a year, and then I worked at Subway, and I kind of worked at Subway on and off throughout college. That was a great job that helped me, interact with customers, be able to talk to customers. There's a lot of pros to working at Subway, especially as a college student that was broke. You got your free food every 3 hours. You got a six inch sub. You got to talk to customers, and it was fairly laid back. So that was super nice to be able to start talking to customers like that. And
So that's
then,
that's so Subway feeds you while you're on
yep,
shift. and you get to talk to customers. That makes sense. I didn't realize, but they're one of the biggest, maybe the biggest franchise of food restaurants or restaurant fast food. I don't know if it's fast food, but biggest franchises in the world. So, but you said you were going to college.
Yep. I went to college for a little bit. My family pushed me to, either get a factory job or go to college and, get a super great degree and this, that, and the other and get, associate's degree, bachelor's degree, and maybe a PhD in something. So I went to college, and me being a gym rat, I wanted to go for physical therapy and nutrition. I did about 2 years of college and dropped out. One of the best decisions of my life. Um, but
So,
I would say I did the two fast foods,
well,
and then when I
before
was,
you leave the college thing, let's talk about that for a second.
yes,
Because
sir.
a lot of people are in college right now, right? Or they're being
Yep,
told to go to college. So one,
yep.
tell me tell me about the pressure that society and the family put on you at the time you were that age to go to college, what they said would happen to you if you didn't go to college, and then tell me kind of what happened when you said you were getting out. And then also maybe talk about the background of your family because I think it's important too. Like, did you come from a lot of college graduates, or did you come from business owners or people who worked factory jobs? Tell us about all that.
Sure. So I was always pressured to, go to college, go to college, go to college. It's the only way you're going to succeed. That's the only way you're going to get ahead in life. That's the only way that, you're going to be able to break out of the matrix and have, a good supply of money and not have to worry in life, so to speak. Um, I was always pushed that route just because my older brother, who's 10 and a half years older than me, he went to college and he was super successful. So all of my relatives saw that as, that should be my mentor. You should follow your brother's steps, go to college and do the same thing as him. Not so to speak the same thing because he went to school for engineering. Um, but they wanted me to go to college really bad, and I never was one for the books. I don't have that attention span. um and it was always, I would excel in classes that I liked the teacher and the teacher actually cared about the students, not the teacher that goes to, school, teach, goes home, and that's their paycheck, so to speak, where they don't, create that bond with the kids.
So,
So,
so your older brother,
yep.
you never mentioned him.
So I haven't talked to him. God, it's been 5 years, 4 years. So we don't have the best relationship. We butted heads consistently in life ever since my mom's passing. We could never, we have a lot in common, but we could never see eye to anything. And we would get into pretty heated arguments to the point where he had a wedding coming up and he told me last minute that I couldn't bring the person that I was with me. And it just started a big argument. And then he said, if this is your choice, then I don't want to talk to you. And
Do
that
you
was
think
pretty much the end of it.
do you think he did that out of some sort of love, not knowing, obviously there's a big age gap there, probably not a lot of time spent together. You think he did that because he wanted what was best for you and he just didn't know how to express it other than just by laying an iron fist down? Or what do you think on that?
It's hard to say. It's probably a little bit of both, but it was fine. It was fine. And then it was a few days before we were supposed to leave to go down to Alabama that he was like, yeah, no, I'm changing my mind. Um, his wife didn't want, the person that I was coming with, they just wanted me to come down, and I didn't see that fair. And we already were getting into arguments before this, um, because I was dropping out of college at the time, and he was upset that I was dropping out of college, and that was a fight in and of itself, just because he went to college for 12 or 14 years.
Yeah, sounds like he was feeling some dad
Yeah,
vibes there. He's wanting to be the big brother. That's his job, though.
yeah.
At the end of the day, we don't always do it right, but it's the way it goes. So, so you've been told your whole life you got to go to college or you're going to be a failure. Then you go to college and it's not for you. You drop out. Was that like coming up for air and getting oxygen once you got out? Or was there relief, or did it scare you? What happened then?
I really didn't know what I was going to get myself into. Um, so when I started college, I switched from Subway, and there was a little floor restoration shop right behind Subway, and they were paying 14.50 starting. And at that time, it was 2016, 2017. And I was like, man, I'm making only $8 an hour at Subway, 14.50. That's great. That's almost double. I was super happy. That's a trade. I'm gonna be able to learn more things. This is an actual job, more responsibilities. Um, and then started working at this place called Sandmasters, where we would do hardwood floor restoration.
Hmm.
And that was kind of like the very tip to the beginning, where I started learning, how to sand things, and how to stain. Um, and then I was, introduced to these guys that are 45, 50 years old. Um, and we'd have those 30, 45 minute van rides to the job sites, and those old guys would always go on their rants about, oh, back in my day, this, that, and the other, and when I was your age, I wish I could have done this. And every time one of those old people, when I was working those trade jobs, I would open my ears and take those things they say and actually start applying them to my everyday life.
So, what are some of those lessons that they told you that stand out to you?
Oh, there's so many. um
Then what was the ones you heard over and over from different guys? They all said the same thing. What was that?
um Pretty much not wasting your 20s. Use all that spare energy you have in your 20s, um to build a foundation for yourself. You have so much endless energy in your 20s.
Hmm.
um and I've been noticing it this last 2 years, I would say, as I'm coming up to 30 soon. That energy slowly decreasing. But they were completely right. Use that extra energy, that extra time, that extra focus. You don't have a family or anything. Um, you can set yourself up for the rest of your life if you take the right steps.
Yep, that's true. I like it. So your hardwood floor sanding. When did so we're almost there. We're almost to the
Yes, sir.
to
We're
the to the
almost
jump.
there.
Keep going. Tell me more.
So I was doing the sanding and flooring with them for probably about 6 months, and then my boss quit. Got a new boss, and I was supposed to start going off on my own and start prepping floors by myself. And it was just a complete flip in the totem pole again to the bare minimum, like almost like where I started day one, with this new boss. And I said, I can't do that. I was supposed to get a $2 raise. Um, and I just didn't like that boss, so I ended up quitting. So I kind of always jumped from job to job. Before I owned my business, I never worked for more than a year at some places. But I did Sandmasters for about, I'd say 6 to 8 months, right in there. Learned from the old guys, learned how to stain, learned how to lay clear coats, learned how to feather out my stain, um, and then just that attention to detail. Those old guys would just torture me with the amount of attention to detail on the smallest things, and I would just get yelled at and just like looking back at it, I was just like, oh my god, these old guys, they hate me or something. But looking back at it, all that attention to detail just ended up paying off a lot.
Number one, number one trait of that I see, one of the most common traits I see amongst entrepreneurs, people that are successful, is attention to detail. You know,
Yes, sir.
you'll never be the top guy if you don't have attention to detail. That's tough. That is
Yes,
tough.
sir.
Got to have it. And people that have it can't understand people that don't have it. So it's
Yep.
that's a good trait you learned. So do you think those guys were like the first father figure you had in your life in some way?
Oh, definitely. I think they were definitely my mentors in life. They weren't, permanent mentors. They were short mentors.
How hard on you
They
were they?
taught.
You said they were yelling at
Oh,
you. How
those.
hard? Tell everybody what it was really like.
I mean, I got yelled at a few times where they yelled at me to like get back in the van and sit in the van for a little while. Their face got purple. Like these were old, strict guys that have been doing hardwood flooring for 35, 40 years. Everything had to be perfect. Um, I'm thankful for it at the end of the day, but
When
man, they were gruesome.
when you had to
They
go
were
sit in the truck,
cutthroat.
when you had to go sit in the truck, could you turn the truck on and sit in the air conditioning?
No,
No.
no, I
Yep.
couldn't. They had the keys.
Yep. And then
They'd come back out for about 30 minutes and say, are you ready to come back to work? And I would say, yep.
and what about cell phone or anything? Were you able to have cell phone on the job site at that time, or when you were sitting in the truck?
Yep. It wasn't the boss. It was, one of the main guys that were working, but they would just send me out to the truck and they would say, either, you have a timeout or, you can sit in the truck till the end of the day and then you're done. They were
You know,
cutthroat.
hey, that's the way I was raised, man. They used to send me to the truck, back before sitting in the truck was cool. If you aren't working right, go sit in the truck. And there's no, it's 500 degrees in the truck. Shut the door. You can roll the window down if you want, but sit in the truck. But man, I think that that's
Got
probably one of the things that shapes how you are. I know it definitely
Oh,
shaped me because
definitely.
that's exactly the way that I was raised. And man, I'm thankful for that. So I think you can be thankful for that one too. So
Yes,
I
sir.
think a lot of guys on job sites nowadays, they don't understand. So for I want the guys in my company to hear this too. For any of the younger guys that are in the trades, these younger generations seem to like they get their feelings hurt, or they're offended, or they want to be spoken to, at 18 years old with respect. And when you say when like when you got yelled at, did you feel disrespected, or did you feel because nowadays the kids just say, well, I'm being disrespected. But did you feel disrespected, or did you feel like you actually were just had, talk to me about that. How did you feel when they yelled and screamed at you? How did
I
your
mean, I
ego
knew
take it?
that I knew that I made the mistake, and it was just like, oh man, I messed up. Either I can, get yelled at and take it, or I can, not take it and quit the job, so to
Hmm.
speak. It was either I lose my job and then I don't have a job and I don't have income and now I'm screwed and how am I going to feed myself, pay my bills?
So,
There was that scare aspect back then.
so when you were doing this and getting yelled at and all that, did it like increase the fire in you to get better, or did it just
Oh, it
burn
definitely did.
and and like piss you off every day, and you were just madder and madder and madder?
Every day I would try a little bit harder. I would be like, man, I gotta get this corner right. I gotta scrape it perfect and sand it perfect. I don't want to get yelled at again.
Yeah. Oh, that's good,
I
man.
don't
I
want
think
old Nick getting mad. I can't take it 2 days in a row.
same here, man. So, well, what I've noticed is on your cabins and stuff, there is attention to detail, and I
Yes,
think that
sir.
that's gonna that attention to detail will double your earning ability, or your maybe triple, or maybe 100 times your capacity to earn money, just because of attention to detail. Every tradesman, every construction worker, every company in the world needs people who have attention to detail and will pay for them.
That's correct.
So that's a big thing. That's cool that you got that, because I see so many young guys. I see so many guys that are 20, 30, 40 years old that come into the trades and they don't have attention to detail and they just bounce around. I mean, can you imagine
Yep.
bouncing from job to job every year, every 6 months for 20 years?
No, I couldn't do that. I could not do that.
Guys do it, man, and they do it because nobody's willing to get in their face and tell them to go sit in the truck when they don't do something right. So I think that's cool that you got that. So, so I hate to go all the way forward, but are you a little bit like old Mick you talk about when you get young guys on the job site? You ever make them go sit in the truck?
I'm a happy medium. Um, yes and no. It you have to really mess up on my job site for me to get like that. But I'll take a step back and come here, take a couple steps back. Let's look at what you're doing. Let's think about this. Let's look at the broad details. Look at the big picture. Can you see what you're doing wrong? And I ask them that first before, going into
Mm-hmm.
detail what I want. You know, can you see from my standpoint what you're doing wrong? And I try to have them problem solve it beforehand. And then I say, do you want me to show you? I always try to have my new employees, ask all the questions. If
That's
they can
cool, man.
ask, the basic questions, I want them to be able to be comfortable with me, to come up to me and say, hey, boss, I don't know what this tool is. Can you show me one time? Or I don't know exactly what you want me to do. Can you show me how to tape off this window one time? Slow it down, explain to me, and I'll explain to them, step by step, slow it down, and tell them why I'm going into the detail that I'm going into,
Makes sense.
instead of just showing them, going through the steps, just showing them and then walking away. I would rather, break things down. Why am I going to do this? And then what to look for, what to prep for, what can happen will happen. So if it can happen, let's prep for what can happen so it doesn't happen.
I like it. So, so you're in the hardwood floor game for a few years, I guess, or a few months.
Yep. And then the next summer after that, I got into exterior painting, and that was the kicker. That was the toe kicker that got my brain started. So I worked for good old Chris. He was a big bodybuilder. He got me from the gym. He said, you got motivation. You show up at the gym every day. I can match the pay that you're getting at Sandmasters and pay you a little bit extra. And I'm going to teach you how to paint. And I said, perfect. Got into painting with Chris, and he was a big bodybuilder, and he was cutthroat. And there was times that he had some steroid rage on the job site a few times. And he got in my face a few times, like extra crazy, 10 times more than old Nick boy. But he taught me a lot, for prepping and everything, and that's how I met my old man Sean that you met, down in Tennessee. And Sean taught me a lot about painting because At the beginning, Chris had the whole crew at the job sites, uh, and I would do, the basic work that laborers do, all the prep, whatnot, and he had the airless sprayer. And then he started jumping the gun on himself and wanting to work on 2, 3 jobs at a time. So he would leave just me and old Sean on the job site to paint the whole big commercial apartment complex or house by ourselves. And that's really where it first started, where I started to learn everything. I know the one way that I got comfortable with ladders was because of Chris. I was always like, when I first started for Chris, I was always scared of the big ladders and having to go up, 20, 30 feet. And I would always get the leg shakes, and I would just lock up midway through climbing a ladder. And I remember I was at the top of a 40-foot ladder, 2.5 story house, side of a chimney, and I froze up probably about 3/4 the way up, and Chris was at the bottom, and he's like, "You got to get up to the top and paint that." And I was like, "I'm trying." He's like, "Are you scared right now?" I was like, "A little bit." He's like, "Let's fix that." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He grabs the ladder on both sides and bounces me off the wall for like 30 seconds on a 40-foot ladder. I'm 30 feet up, 32 feet up, and he's bouncing it off the side of a house like 5 feet. And I was just frozen in time. And ever since that day, I've just been completely fine with ladders.
So
But
so
he
so
was
he
just
so he
cutthroat.
so he just pulled the ladder back off the house and bounced it on the house a couple times to just let you know that, hey, the ladder's not going anywhere.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. That's
Yep.
crazy. Yep, that's
He
wild.
was like, "This ladder is not going to go anywhere. This is completely stable down here." And like for 30 seconds straight, it was just bouncing off the side of this house. And I was just like, "Okay, the ladder's not going anywhere now." And I got up to the top of there and started painting.
So I want to talk. So I'm interested in this character building that you went through. So the old stained floor guys got in your face. They were rough and they did it with love, obviously. You know, for love of either you or for love of their job site. But how did that
It was
prepare
just
you?
love for the quality of the work
Yeah.
because we
How did
were
that?
we were the oh, keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. How did that prepare you for big steroid Chris to get in your face? And would you have been
Oh,
able to handle it had you not worked for those other guys?
I don't think I could have, honestly. It prepped me for that, but man, big steroid Chris, he was next level in your face. If you didn't do what he said, and he would be like, I just told you to do that. Like you're gonna do it. Like I'm paying you to do that. So he was always um that pretty much got my mindset to scared money doesn't make any money. For like those just um like on the side of roofs, or like if you have to climb a steep roof, or go up 50 feet in the air, or work off a lift or something. It's got to get done at the end of the day. There's one way to do it, or there's a few ways to do it. um you just got to not think about being scared. um what I've found with being scared with heights is, if you're going to be scared, it's going to set yourself up more for potential failures because you're thinking about it too much.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to be self aware. You can't just run up and down ladders and run up and down scaffold and willy nilly run lifts. You obviously have to be self aware, but at the same time, you just can't be shaky. You can't be, thinking about how high up you are. You just got to be thinking about the task at hand.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true, but I also think that it is normal. I think a great saying for yourself is that it's normal. So if you get halfway up the ladder and your legs start
Oh,
shaking,
it's definitely normal.
that's actually it's a normal thing that your body's doing because you've never been here before, and you go, okay. If you it's like military combat guys, before they go into combat for the first time and they're all sick feeling and they're got butterflies and they feel weird, and because they're going into combat, and then the leader goes, "Are you feeling this way?" And they go, "Yeah," and he goes, "That's normal. It's your body preparing for war." And it's the same thing. I think when you're doing these when you're on a roof for the first time, when you're anytime you're doing any of this stuff that there's some risk involved, it's normal. It's normal for your body to be like that. And probably the old school way of getting guys through that, the way my dad did it, and the way maybe Chris and them did it, was was a real rough way of just saying, "Hey, go do it. It's got to be done. Get it done," and shaking you off the side of the house. But if you
Yep.
just know up front that, hey, when you go up that ladder, you're probably going to get scared. You're probably going to want to freeze up and lock up. Be prepared for it. When you start to notice it, take a breath and keep moving. If a little bit of that preparation would probably help younger guys. But
Yeah, exactly.
but I think
I,
they
I
should.
won't do that to my I don't bounce people off ladders when I have them start working on ladders. I gradually work them up, you know,
Yeah,
10 feet on a ladder, 15 feet, 20 feet, start
yeah.
working up that way, get that repetition, get that, all right, I'm 10 feet up. I've been working 10 feet up for the last 2 days. Now I can, get a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, I
It's
think
that
that's
time
good.
under tension.
And a lot of young guys nowadays, we have difficulty with young guys that are really young. They just there's almost like this cop out that there's a way out in the workplace nowadays, and it's just to say, "Oh, I don't feel comfortable with that." And
Yep.
nowadays in the workplace, it's like, what do you do? In the old days, they would have said, well, go sit in the truck, and if you don't start feeling real comfortable soon, you can go home. But nowadays, things are a little bit different. But I think what the young guys that are listening to this need to realize is you're not going to feel comfortable with it. You may not feel comfortable with it for 2 or 3 or 5 years, but you will get comfortable with it. And there's somebody
Oh,
here who can teach
definitely.
you to be comfortable. So I think that's an important thing for guys to hear about. Just, hey, the lift's scary. Driving the truck's scary. The first time you're driving a dually truck with a trailer behind it, that's scary. It's uncomfortable. I
Yep.
used to drive an ambulance. I used to be a firefighter and EMT, and we would have to drive like an hour and a half. It was like about almost a 2 hour drive from the town I was in to downtown Nashville and we would have to drive that big ambulance all the way down there and what they called emergency traffic lights and sirens. And I grew up
Yep.
like driving heavy trucks and stuff. And my dad taught me, a heavy truck it's a heavy truck. It's not a sports car. You drive it differently. You give yourself space. You respect it.
Yep.
And I remember having to, in the night, in the rain, in rush hour traffic, having to drive 2 hours at 100 miles an hour in the ambulance. And I hated it. I just absolutely
Oh,
hated
I
it
bet.
because there's no safe way to do that. And what I
No.
what I found is I would white knuckle the steering wheel. I would grab it so tight and I would get nervous. And then I just found that if I would just relax and just drive the truck like I would normally, even though I'm going super fast, my body would loosen up and I would just get over myself and I would get through it. And I wouldn't think about it. I would just go to more of a instinctual driving,
Yep.
and it would help a lot. So I think just go up the ladder like you've done 1,000 times. You get used to it.
Yep. It's just getting that time under tension.
Yep.
There's no other way to put it than getting that time in the field. There's guys that'll, ask questions. How do I quote this? How would you do this? It's just working up to being able to be comfortable to do it and having that time under workload and, getting that experience.
While we're talking about ladders, what did you guys use? The really lightweight aluminum ladders or the fiberglass ones?
So I use the fiberglass when I go 32 feet and above, but I use just aluminum. I use the Gorilla ladders,
Hmm.
and those are just so convenient.
Yeah.
all different sizes, all different, capabilities. You can go on a roof, you can go on a hill, you can go 5 feet up, you can go 15 feet up. You can make it a straight ladder, you can make an A-frame.
I like that.
It's just,
I see
it's
a lot of
super
guys
handy.
climbing really tall, lightweight aluminum ladders, and it just scares me to death. I like the fiber. I like the heavier ladder. I want
Yep.
some
It's a
substance
little
there.
bit more of a pain to, uh, go around the house because that ladder is probably about 200, 215 pounds. So obviously it's going to take a little bit of man strength to maneuver it. But once you have it in place and set up, it's just so much more comfortable to work off of in those higher situations.
So, so we're now an hour in.
Yes, sir.
Let's get into the. You've started your own business, or let's get into the point where you're
The
thinking about.
Northwoods
Yeah.
Refinishing.
How does this come about?
So Northwoods Refinishing started as a handyman service for right around a year. And then the second year, maybe it was the end of the first year, one of the customers that was a regular said, "Hey, I have this back deck, this small little back deck. I need it power washed and stained." And I was like, "Well, I've stained hardwood floors. I've painted outside. I've got a little 2.5 gallon DeWalt power washer that I paid $150, $200 for. I can make this work." So I went over there, no chemicals, no nothing, power washed the deck, went back, sanded everything, and then I applied a solid with the grit in it because she was um, an older customer. So she always complained about her back deck always getting slick when it rained. So we did a solid with some of that shark grit in it and stained that deck. And I started advertising, my handyman work. And I had that picture of the deck in my portfolio. And ever since that one photo, uh, right after that second time I advertised, I think I got 3 or 4 leads for decks. And
And
I went,
so,
okay,
so how'd you advertise that? You put it on social media?
yep, just Facebook groups, local Facebook groups, just showing, this is a project that I recently did. Showed the befores, the durings, the afters, and post those photos, the decks. And all of a sudden I got 3 or 4 leads for more decks, and I go, okay, this is weird. I would do, landscaping one day, putting up blinds in somebody's house the next day, um, building a trampoline the next day. And I was like, okay, what if we can, start narrowing what we're doing down? And I said, decks aren't that hard. This will be pretty nice. So I started power washing decks, and then I started getting into like the bleach cleaning of decks, and then using like Sherwin-Williams stain, and then I got a call back because it started to peel like 3 or 4 months later. Sanded it, put another coat down, and I was like, man, I'm getting all these tools. I'm getting more knowledge. I'm getting more leads. There's got to be a better way. And just when I started my business, it was just always finding what's going to be the better way to do this the next time. What's going to make this easier? What's going to make me get in and out of this job more efficiently? And how can I give the customer a better outcome? And that's when I think I found your group on Facebook with 350 people in it. And I was like, okay, this Caleb guy's posting some videos of some cleaners. I don't know what metastilicate and sodium hydroxide and oxalic acid are. Let's keep watching this. He's got some knowledge. He's got some crazy stain that he's using for these fences and decks. They're turning out pretty nice. So I was watching, some of your videos, and I was like, man, those chemicals are working so much better and he's having better outcomes and it doesn't chip, peel, and crack. I was like, man, that's nice. And then and then I moved uh, halfway through starting my business. I worked about 2 years down in my hometown, moved up north because I was going to become an electrician. That didn't work after 2 months. And then I just went full blown into my business. Um, then Greg from Deerco reached out to me. He said, hey, I see your work online. You're doing great work. I think you can do a little bit better. I've got some chemicals. I've got some products. I got some brushes. I've got, a whole paint supply store. And I've got some stains that I think you'll like a lot more than the Sherwin-Williams. And I said, all right, let's see what old Greg's about.
What a guy, man. What a guy. Well, that's some humility there, because that's the main guy there, and that's a big company, and he calls this new guy basically out of nowhere and just says, "Hey, man, I want to help you do better." I mean, obviously he wanted your business, but
Yeah,
he didn't really want your business. He wanted the business that you were gonna, I think he saw that if he invested in you in 5 years, you might be a really big customer. That's actually incredible, because most Sherwin-Williams stores, they're just going to go for the big guys and forget about the little guys. That's pretty cool that he did that.
exactly. And I mean, I went there a few days after he messaged me, and I mean, it was the best experience that I had, honestly. I stopped at Deerco, met Greg. He probably gave me like $500 worth of free things to try out, bunch of brushes, bunch
Wow.
of rags, you name it for staining. He pretty much got me set up for it. And then he showed me Armstrong Clark's stain. And I started using Armstrong Clark because that was their stain brand that they used for their best stain at Deerco. So I started using Armstrong Clark. It was the true penetrating stain, and I started implementing the two-step chemical wash from you. Um, and I mean, business just started booming. I mean, just 1 year I went from, barely making it by to, holy cow, I have, 2 dozen leads. So,
That's about the time that I started seeing you coming on the radar. Is when you got in the
yep,
Facebook group.
yep. That's when you started seeing me. And that's when, things really started taking off, was right after I, you know, talked to Deerco and I started learning more about, the two-step chemical wash, the proper way to prep everything, and then just the tricks and tips of the trade, so to speak, and then making my own tips and tricks of the trade just to make decks go easier. I know, God, for the first 4 years, I didn't use an airless sprayer, and I still just kicked myself in the rear end
What were you using?
for not using brush. We brushed everything Justin Menendez style, baby. We were brushing everything. It was
Did your did your
terrible.
did your callbacks go up when you got the airless sprayer?
No, I've only had two callbacks since I moved up here, and they were easy fixes. I mean, I went there and the fix was within 20 minutes
Yeah, what I see a
type
lot
of
of
deal.
guys doing is they do an exceptional finish with brushes, and then they get the airless sprayer, and then you see guys, they're just spraying randomly. They're not back brushing. It's thin over here, it's thick over there, and there's no attention to detail again with that sprayer. So sometimes we do see guys go downhill when they get one. So,
No,
but
when I got the sprayer, it was mainly for, and it still is only for spindles, really. Spindles and log homes is what I use an airless sprayer for. I don't use it for the flats. I just use the big 14-inch Unger brush or whatever, the $10 Unger blue brush.
yep,
Man, that thing goes by quick.
I like it. That's awesome, man. That's a great thing. So from so now you're really getting it going. You understand, when did it become Northwoods Refinishing?
It became Northwoods Refinishing 3 years ago. Before Northwoods Refinishing, it was Standing and Power Washing. Real lame name. I knew that I couldn't, scale a business off of that name. Um, I knew that the business was growing, more popularity was coming. Um, I knew that it wasn't professional and that I needed to grow with the company. So I was, thinking, how, like, I asked my accountant first, like, how can we change a name? Like, how is this possible? What are the steps to doing it? She told me, and a week later, I put together Northwoods Refinishing.
I like it. That's cool. So what now? So you're doing decks. You're doing a lot of decks. How did you get into the log homes? And then once you did get into log homes, how did it? You're doing shinking. You're doing caulking. You're doing
Oh,
two-step
man.
finishes. How did all that
Yes,
come to be?
sir. So, 3.5 years ago, I was doing tons of decks. I think we were doing like 75 decks a year seasonally. And all of a sudden, somebody messaged me, said, "Hey, you do great work for decks. Um, I got a log home. Can you tackle something like this?" And I was like, I don't know. I was like, let me come take a peek at it. I looked at it and I went, oh my God. I think it was 3,500 square feet that needed to get stained total. Big lake house, and I was overwhelmed,
Yep.
to say the least. And then I messaged Sean, who I work with Chris with, and he was my mentor for, painting. I was like, man, Sean, I've got this project. I know I can do it, but I think I just need a little bit of help, help guide me, help, get that confidence and help, get through this project together. So old Sean came up by me, and we took on this giant log home. I think we power washed it for 3 days. Um, Now it would only take me a day. But he came up, we started power washing, we sand everything, and then we stained it with booge, and it just turned out fantastic and still one of my top like 3 or 4 jobs that I've done.
I like it, man. That's cool. So the love has began. So that first cabin, did your guy that came and help you, did he know how to caulk them and what products to use and all that? How'd you figure that out?
No, it's just been from like the log home page on Facebook, really.
Yeah. So you're learning. So why don't you give us? I think if you want to learn log homes, I don't think we should give it all away, all the exact things.
Oh,
But
it's
there's
it's a
so
lot
much.
more than.
Yeah, there's so much to it. But what are the top things that you found you got to look at and be you know attention to detail on now versus when you first started? Because at first you're just looking at this log home, but now when you go, what do you? I mean, you're immediately looking at probably 5 to 10 things. What does that look like?
Oh, you're looking at, the biggest thing is gutters and the overhangs on these homes. Um, Hold on just 1 second. My worker just got back. Just got to talk to him and let my dogs out. Give me like 30 seconds here.
Yep, no problem. I got it. So I'll take over the show here. So Stanton, some of the things that we know that you got to look at are more than just the condition of the siding. We got to determine what's on the cabin. Is it one layer of oil-based stain? Is it a solid paint? Is it like an acrylic stain with a clear top coat? We want to determine that. We want to look for cracks. We want to look for cracks that run through the edge of a board all the way to the end of the board, because that's an issue that need to be filled. We want to look for any kind of log damage or rotting or things that you may not see. You want to be looking at that the whole time, because if you strip a solid stain, you may find under it some rotted places or something. You back?
Correct.
You back with
So,
us?
yep, I'm all good. So there's so many different things.
What were you talking
So
about?
the
The
biggest,
overhangs.
so the overhangs, that is the part of the roof that comes out and past, the logs. The typical overhang on the house, typically, I don't know, 8 to 14 inches. Sadly, that is not enough for a log home. I would go to the extremes of 24 to 48 inches, like a nice 4 foot overhang, just to keep water away from those logs, keep weather away from the logs. Obviously, if the house has already been built and already has a roof on, it's kind of hard to do, but gutters are a big thing that I don't see up here. Every house that I go to, I say, your two bottom logs are rotted out. You got to get, gutters on this house. That's one of the big things is just the gutters, the excess wear and tear from the backsplash coming off the roof, hitting those lower logs, and just rotting out and premature failure. Then we're looking at cracks that are bigger than a quarter inch that are facing upwards. They're considered checks in the logs. And then what I would do for the checks would be put closed cell backer rod and then caulk
Hmm.
it with Sash Coat Conceal. And that's going to be a caulk that stretches.
Yep, know what you're talking about.
So typical caulk won't stretch with the logs when it flexes, when it, shrinks and contrasts and expands. It will end up failing, creating a crack, and then creating a area where moisture can get behind that caulk and do more harm than good. So that's why I use the Sash Coat Conceal.
So,
So the other thing that you're talking about is one of the most important things, um, knowing what was last on that home and then the prep needed for that home to, um, be prepped correctly.
mhm.
Um, it can have, absolutely nothing on it, and it can be a nice, easy two-step wash. Other times, some people put on paints or solid stains. You can't remove that with typical power washer typically. So you'll need to media blast that. There's just different levels of prep. Are you doing a maintenance coat? Are you doing a full refinish?
Whole lot of things to dial, to dive into there. So,
Correct.
cabin business is up and going. It's good. That's
Yep.
awesome. Tell me about maybe some of the struggles you've faced with scaling it. Because I think what we see a lot of times with myself and with many other people, we can be one man show, then we got a second person, and then we got four people, and then we got eight people, then we got two people again, and then we're back to one person, and we run into these kind of struggles. Have you run into anything like that, and what have you done to overcome
Oh,
it?
I definitely have. I've had my rise and fall of the company already. Um, I started scaling it, started getting, another employee, and then there's another employee. So there's two employees, and then there's three employees, and then there's four employees, and then, you might lose an employee here and there for different reasons. Um, but I've had my rise and fall. Like right now, I've been pretty much working this year completely alone to kind of step back in that aspect, kind of relearn, reteach myself, and get better fundamentals to be able to grow better. Because I kind of jumped into things without a game plan, and it it's it self destructed itself very quickly without a game plan and without a a big fundamental backbone to be able to grow on. I had those hopes and dreams and everything, but I didn't have the mindset to actually grow in what it actually took to, have that many employees. So sadly, I lost my crew kind of for different reasons this last year, between health and then um, family issues with
Hmm.
two of my employees. So they were amazing crew, a crew that I could never replace. But um, there is definitely good things and bad things about everything. But this last year, with losing all of them, I wanted to kind of take a step back. I knew that I kind of jumped the guns on a few things, and I was kind of that dog that was beaten in the corner um, at all times, and I was just always just fight or flight mode, so to speak. There's just always just this abundance of stress on my shoulders, and it was just a lot to take in because you have so much going on. You have, not only yourself to feed now you have five other families to feed.
Hmm.
And that's a lot of stress that not a lot of people can, undergo, and especially if things grew too quick and you didn't, fundamentally ready yourself. You can definitely self-destruct quick.
I see a lot of people, they start making money and they've never had money. But it's not
Yep.
really money, it's called cash flow. Businesses
Yep.
have cash flow and it's sometimes can be quite a lot of money. And the problem is there's a responsibility that you, the owner, have with that money. And a lot of it is, it's not your money, it's the business's money. So planning, you said planning,
Exactly.
setting goals. Everybody knows that I'm big on strategic planning and setting goals. And
Yep.
but I also think that stress. I think a lot of people. How do you deal with stress? Do you look at stress as or I hear a lot of people saying anxiety. My wife teaches a homeschool co-op for a lot of kids, and there's these 5-year-old kids talking about the anxiety that they have and things, and these are homeschool kids, and I can't imagine what public school kids are saying. So how do you deal with stress, and do you look at it as it's just that's part of life and you just completely ignore it, or do you tell us about that?
I mean, I stress really sets a fire under me and makes me motivated more than anything. I make it give me energy at the end of the day. You can either have that take over your life and, just stress you out to all disbelief, or you can, make it give you energy, so to speak, and motivate you more to do better and to be able to overcome things.
I like that. I look at it as, weightlifting, your body is sore when it's growing.
Yep.
You want to be sore. You don't want to be too sore, but you want to be, it's good to be sore if you're trying to grow your body or your muscles. And I think the same thing for the body, for the mind, for those things. If you have weight on you from a business, if you have stress, that is a good thing. You need to it's going to
That
grow you
just
and
means you're
stretch you. Yeah,
growing.
yeah, make you a stronger, better person. I think where people get into trouble though is they focus on the negative. I look at that almost as evil. Like that would be to me, if I focus too much on all the negative things in the world or around my business, that would be like evil, demon, Satan coming after me, and I would just won't allow it. And so I'll be looking
Yep.
for a way out. So I don't focus on, I don't even think really about anxiety. To me, it's I think of the Navajo Indians who have no word for stutter, and no one in their tribes stutter. So I look at it like that. Like if we pretend that it doesn't exist, if we don't give it power of a word with a word, then maybe
Yep.
it's just not going to affect us so much. But I'm a little different than most people
Exactly.
though.
And
So
I mean, at the end of the day, we have responsibilities, we have duties, we have, disciplines that we have to do no matter what. every single day as a business owner. If we don't do it, who's going to do it? Um, who's going to be able to, lead the pack, so to speak, and to be able to put food in everybody's mouth and to have that game plan? You've got to be able to, deal with that stress and that high stress output and input.
You
Uh,
know,
that, Go ahead.
I'm with you. I always said I wanted big problems. I'm tired of these little problems. I want some big problems. And along the way, you'll start to get bigger problems. And you have to remind yourself, you go, oh, I wanted this. Like let's say you got a big tax problem. I owe a lot of taxes, or I got a lot of, you know, pay. I wanted 20 employees, and then you get the payroll tax for 20 employees, the workers' comp for 20 employees. That's just a problem that comes with it. And
Yeah.
I think you just got to start to realize that as you increase, things are going to increase. We built a new building, and we took a piece of land that had a building on it, and we really, really improved it. And I got our tax bill. They went way up on our tax bill, and I was not happy about it at all. But then I had to just switch my thinking and say, I'm so thankful that I've got the type of property that requires that type of tax bill, because it means I've got something really nice. And just
Yeah.
had to switch it around, man. Even though I'm still mad that I got to pay that, because, why not? But just got to change your
At the end of the
perspective.
day, you still got to pay it. You got to either, accept it and
Yep.
move on, or you're going to either dwell on it and be
Yep.
pissed off for, however long that's going to be.
Well, that's like Grant Cardone said with his jet. He said, "Don't you, people always ask him, doesn't he worry about the fuel? The fuel's so expensive." He said, "I don't worry about it." He said, "It's no good without fuel, so it's just part of it." So I think the idea of this podcast was to not to talk so much about the log home staining business, but more to just say your story is similar to mine in that started out in a totally different place than I am today. But I always knew something more was there. I could do something more. And it sounds like your story is really meant to inspire somebody else who maybe,
I always knew that I was going to be successful, but it was just, where am I going to apply that energy? And I just never had, like that mentor or anything that, said, go start a business or something. So I had to self-teach myself a lot of things in life. But the biggest thing is, I just wanted to be able to control my life, and I wanted to be able to somewhat control the outcomes and life aspects in my life and the things that I can achieve. I don't want to be stuck slaving myself away from 9 to 5 for somebody else, making a dime when they make a dollar, so to speak.
yeah. Let's talk about that for a minute. Where would our businesses be if we didn't have people who wanted to do those things? Who wanted to make a
Exactly.
dime for when the company makes a dollar? Because many times, let me ask you this: has there ever been a time where your crews made more money than you?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely.
And so it's real easy to say, well, he's making a dollar and I'm only making a dime. Well, a lot of times when people are growing their business, the employees that are making 15 bucks an hour are making more money than the boss is. The boss just has to sit there and say, you know what, I believe in this and I'm going to figure it out. And so there is there. So the two lessons that I think we should pull from this, one is no matter where you are in life, if life is really, really hard, really bad, if you just go get a job and find some people to work with that will help you and that will hold you to a higher standard, like old Mick did,
Yep.
then it will make a positive impact in your life, and it can set you up for the next thing or the next thing or the next thing, which might eventually lead to you running your own business. I didn't start my business. I was very entrepreneurial, very young. 14, 15 years old, had a lawn care business with business cards, called it neighborhood lawn care, and I drove around my neighborhood mowing grass. And then worked in the family business for years. But I didn't actually start my own business and I regret this now because I wish I would have started earlier, but I didn't start my own business till what, maybe like 26, 27, 28, and something like that, maybe 25, I guess. But anyways, I worked in the family business for almost 10 years before I started really doing my own thing. And even after I did my own thing part time, I stayed with the family business for years and was just doing my business on the side. And I regret that. I do and I don't regret it. I wish I'd have started sooner, but I also got a lot of experience in the other one. So if you're an employee somewhere, I think the lesson here is to be the employee. If you're making a nickel and the boss is making $1, the boss has already spent the dollar. And if you get to keep your nickel, you're doing better than the boss is. And so really work hard to become the best version of yourself you can be in that job, no matter what. And then if you do that, you can move on with that experience, or you can move up where you're at. I think
Exactly.
personal excellence. I think no matter what you do, there's a saying, I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it says, if I am destined to be a garbage collector, I will be the best garbage collector that there ever was. And so I think that's a cool mindset. And so I just really appreciate you sharing your story, man. And I'm hoping,
No worries.
we'll put this out in a few days. We'll take our time and get it right. But appreciate you being vulnerable. But I think your story will help somebody out there right now who's in any one of those stages that you might be. But I think also the other lesson is, if you're a dad, if you're a mother, be a dad, be a mother. Be there for your kids, because when we get older and we start to figure these things out, So that's about all I got to say about that, man. What's next for the company for you?
What's next for Northwoods?
Yes, sir.
So recently, I just purchased a big investment. I said I'm not doing interior painting anymore. I want to do log homes year round. So I've thought of ways of how I can do that. And I've already got my name out in a few different states. I've already, helped you with 2 projects down in Tennessee. I've done a project down in Mississippi, done a project way out in New York. I want to be able to, travel and be able to get to see, what the United States has to offer. So I set out a crazy goal this year for myself that by the time I die, I want to stain a log home in every state. So all 50 states, I want to have one log home completely stained, and be able to, go to that state and see what that state has to offer as well. So I went and purchased a 40-foot toy hauler that has a camper in the front half, and then an area in the back that I can store all my tools, all my equipment, and to have everything pretty much right there and ready.
That's awesome, man. I'd love to help with that goal. That's a similar goal to what I have, so that's pretty cool, man. If you want to find out more about Northwoods Refinishing, how do you find it?
You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Northwoods Refinishing. That's pretty much the best way to get a hold of me. Otherwise, Stanton Frank on Facebook, not Frank Stanton.
That's awesome, man. Are you coming to Stanton University, or are you bringing the big rig down for that?
Yes, sir. I plan on
Awesome.
it.
Well, February 8th and 9th here in Nashville. Come see us, guys. Stanton, man, really appreciate your time today, and we'll pull the plug right here, and hopefully this
Sounds
message
good.
will help somebody change their life.
Yes, sir. Hopefully, next podcast I can be right there next to you.
Yeah, maybe the next one we'll do some log home stuff. That'd be cool.
Okay.
All
Yeah, we
right.
can definitely dive deeper into log homes.
Well, I've got just the project for it, so I'll keep you posted.
Perfect. Let's get
All
it
right.
going.